Okay, one of the smartest guests, if not the smartest guest we have in this little dumb rinky-dink Patriots podcast, Aaron Schatz, godfather of football analytics, is back with us. More officially, the Chiefs analytics officer at FTN Fantasy, where you can get the FTN Fantasy Football Almanac, 20th that Aaron has done. Aaron, I don't know if there are many CAOs out there. I know we have a lot of COOs. We have plenty of CEOs. Do you know of any other CAO in your life or anywhere else in the world?
They had to give me a high title, so this is what we came up with.
Did you propose it? Who made like the official pitch?
No, they proposed it. But they were trying to figure out what to call me when they brought me in. This is what we came up with.
Yeah, it's great. I think you're most commonly known for, of course, being the creator of DVOA, which, like I told you off air, that your work helps enrich my work, and I think that's the highest compliment I can pay.
Thank you.
Not to mention, when we get into the season, I do a lot of these preview episodes. It's a lot of breakdowns of their, 31st in DVOA by this, the 72nd in that, and it really helps shape. Because the metric is so now well known, respected, and context dependent, and opponent adjusted, and all these wonderful things, to get as close as we can to who's good, who's not, and all those things we want to know. But until we play, we are reliant on books like yours. Again, the 20th FTN Fantasy Almanac. You can get this online. You can get it on Amazon. I have my copy. I have my notes from this, and of course, we are going to spend a lot of time on the Patriots today. But Aaron, as you well know, your almanac, your preview is not the only one out there. And so what I want to know first broadly is when we have people who listen to this podcast, follow the Patriots or other teams, what are a couple stats, trends, measurements that we should be zeroing in on? After 20 years of doing this book, this stuff matters in a predictive way more than most trends or other stats or measurements.
I mean, of course, I'd say to read my book first because, DVOA correlates better from year to year than wins or points scored. And the adjusting for opponents is an important part of that. And but if you're just looking at regular stats, the most important thing to remember is that preventing or gaining yards and points is more consistent from year to year than turnovers. So a defense that's built mostly on takeaways is going to more likely to regress than a defense that's built mostly on just preventing yardage. That's important with, for example, a team like the Chicago Bears, which was fourth in the league in takeaways per drive last season, and that's not likely to repeat itself.
And yet the Patriots, of course, in reading you and following them from afar, now covering the team, were so long a team built on takeaways under Bill Belichick. I mean, do you, very quickly here as an aside.
Yeah, but they were also good at preventing yards. It wasn't that it was just takeaways. It was everything was good.
Yes, and then in some years, the turnover luck can paper over defenses like 2017, right? They get to the Super Bowl. I think they were 31st that year. The Eagles exposed them for what they were. Granted, the Eagles were excellent, but you're right. The correlation between turnovers allowed as well as points and yards allowed. On the flipping that coin, because again, we are going to have previews over here. I'm going to do multiple previews episode. If you just got to be the czar of football discourse here and said the following stats or cliches are banned when we're talking about previews and these things mattering year to year, what are you kicking out?
NFL official rankings. The NFL official rankings are based on total yardage, which is terrible, especially for defense, because we know that defenses give up yardage when they have a lead late in the game and they're just trying to get the clock done. And so the NFL official rankings based on yardage are terrible. The other thing is strength of schedule that's based on last year's record. Our strength of schedule predictions are they're not as predictive as we would like them to be, but they're much more predictive because they account for things like Aaron Rodgers is now the quarterback of the Jets, not Zach Wilson. If you look at last year's records, you would think playing the Jets is an easy game, but in reality, playing the Jets should be a harder game. And so you have to account for that when you're looking at schedule strength.
I appreciate you saying that. I know there's a lot of work that Warren Sharp, who I don't know if he's a chief analytics officer or not, but people are familiar with his work, has rooted a lot as someone who comes from a gambling background and the projected win loss totals as the basis for strength of schedule as being much more predictive than
yes, that's more predictive. I mean, ours is a little different because our strength of schedule is based on our projections, which do differ from Vegas for some teams, the Patriots being one of them.
Yes.
But what you need with strength of schedule is to be forward-looking. You do not want to use last year's rankings or last year's record for strength of schedule.
Okay, so to recap, if there's anything you take away from this podcast, aside from the next 20 minutes on the Patriots, which is the next little transition by you, this is only our second episode, but you're being a good teammate of, hey, there's a gap between our rankings and projections in Vegas. One of those examples is the Patriots, the team we're going to talk about. Takeaways are not a sustainable way to build a defense or predict year to year, but what is the amount of points and yards that you allow. And looking forward as well, strength of schedule, forget last year's records. Also, forget the NFL official rank. I love the way that you put that. Stop ranking things by total yards allowed, which we do not do here in the podcast. But forget it when you're doing your rankings. If your friends that you're competing with in fantasy or otherwise do it, just stay quiet. Otherwise, tell everyone, pass on the gospel from today.
Yes, the worst is to do like run defenses by yards allowed.
Yeah.
Like there are good run defenses on bad teams that allow lots of rushing yards because their offenses aren't any good, so their opponents are leading, so their opponents are rushing late in games, and that doesn't tell you how good a rush defense really is.
That's absolutely right. Now, going back to the Patriots, Vegas has their over-under win total, and depending on your odds maker, right? Second lowest in the league at 4.5.
Yeah, I've seen lowest in some places, yeah.
Even lower.
Yeah.
But the mean win projection, according to the FTN Fantasy Almanac, which again, I encourage you to go buy. I've done it myself. You can get a discount if you do a season-long pass. I don't care if you do fantasy, you're into gambling, you just want to be a smarter fan. Subscribe. 7.1 wins was the mean win projection. Aaron, please explain to us how you and your system and your projections have the Patriots going 7-10 essentially this season.
Matthew Judon, Christian Gonzalez, and Marcus Jones. Basically, we have the Patriots with our number 3 average defensive projection behind Cleveland and the New York Jets. All right. Defense is harder to project than offense, but what we do know about defense suggests that the Patriots will have one of the top defenses in the league. And a big reason for that is they had a very good defense last year, and they're getting back their best pass rusher and 2 of their 3 best cornerbacks who all missed most of last season. So that is a lot of talent coming back to this defense. Now, their offense, we don't think is going to be good. We have their offense 30th, and they have a very hard schedule. We have their schedule 2nd. But the defense should be good enough for them to win more games than the 4.5 that Vegas is suggesting that they are going to win, especially, by the way, if Jacoby Brissett is the quarterback, because I think with Drake Maye, you have a wider range of possibilities, but I think that Brissett is a quarterback who's more likely to lead a team that wins with running and defense and wins 6 or 7 games instead of 4.
And that's the path here, right? I know the Browns offense last year under Alex Van Pelt took more snaps. They went faster despite not going a lot with the no huddle. But the Patriots want to shorten every game, introduce more variance as an underdog, run the ball, take your time, and play defense that lets you hang around until, we found the end zone. Whether we stumbled backwards or we threw a deep pass and Drake Maye from his back foot across the field for 40 yards, those plays, those scores are going to be hard to come by, so shorten the game. And that seems to be the path to the point of injuries. Because I think this is something in addition to the turnover variance that you brought up earlier, something you've done a lot of really good work in is adjusted games lost. So it's not just how many starters went down. It's not how many starts that they made, but specifically the loss of, you said, the best pass rusher and cornerback. The Patriots, according to your measurements, had the worst injury luck, the most adjusted games lost on defense. And they were 30th, bottom 3 offensively. What is the bounce to be expected fairly, understanding they could rank there again, but it just seems unlikely when you look at this team?
Because it accounts not just for injury that you lose a game, but for injuries where you are on the injured list but play anyway at less than 100%. That's really where the adjustment comes in, because you want to count guys who are playing at less than 100% as well as the guys who missed the game. And I think defense is where you're really going to see the impact, because that's where you see the most important players. Offense, there were offensive line injuries and receivers and whatnot, but I think defense is where you're really going to see it, because, again, it's their best pass rusher and their best cornerback. Like, that is 2 important pieces to get back. Those are really 2 important pieces to get back.
So in a little while, we'll all be boning up on fantasy football. Where can I get Ramondre Stevenson? Is Hunter Henry finally going to break out? Like Callahan's been saying so for years. And what about Drake Maye? Jalen Polk, Pop Douglas, Javon Baker? Well, until then, You can play fantasy and win with PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports in America because unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. What you do is you pick more or you pick less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can get in on the daily action today with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community. What that means is you and a bunch of your friends can win up to 100 times your money with as few as 4 correct picks. That means turning $10 into 1,000. And if you want promotions, always a good idea. PrizePicks has you covered every single week. You can pick the player's stat projections on Tuesday for a lineup bonus, or you get your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Friday. So with basketball over, it's all on to baseball, and we've got women's basketball still. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, AJ Wilson, you know the names. Follow them, play PrizePicks, and win up to 100 times your cash watching them ball out. I've told you this before. I do this with Sox games, whether I'm at Fenway or at home. So pick the player, pick the stat types, more or less, and that's it. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, you put in 100, they give you 100. If you download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS, that's CLNS on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Okay, so setting them aside, let's do some more reasons for optimism here. Because again, this is not the definitive projection. It's within, kind of the middle of the bell curve here, 7.1, which says it's just as equal or equally likely, seemingly. They might be 8 and 9 as they could be 6 and 11 or below, according to your projections. 30th on offense, though, as far as adjusted games lost. I remember Ramondre Stevenson being banged up to start the season. Demario Douglas missed the end or parts of the season. Hunter Henry misses the end, as did Ramondre Stevenson, who I mentioned. And Trent Brown went from all-pro left tackle through week 8 to bumbling, kind of slowly quitting on the team and then just being shelved for the rest of the year. Do you think there's enough there that, we're going to talk a lot about quarterbacks and the benefit of Brissett, Drake Maye, but just if they go to 16th in adjusted games lost, that's almost as much reason to believe in them as the defensive guys returning that you already mentioned.
Well, the offense will improve a little bit if that happens. But, part of the problem, they didn't really replace Brown, right? Yeah. Left tackle is still such a question mark that I think if you look at it subjectively and you're like, okay, they missed games at left tackle last year because of injury, but who are they really replacing it with this year? It's not that great.
Yeah, it's not so good. We have here on the list a reason for pessimism. I think they're fairly obvious. Receiver and offensive line, if we skip over this here quickly, is that there's nothing underlying that we're missing in your numbers or otherwise you've looked at and say, yeah, the reasons for, to be down on this team as much as Vegas is and the fans here at home are those two position groups?
A big reason is just you cannot expect a rookie quarterback to be good. That's why we're lower on Chicago than the conventional wisdom. That's why we're lower on Indianapolis, because Anthony Richardson is effectively a rookie. We're lower on Indianapolis than conventional wisdom. And if Drake Maye plays, you can't expect him to be good. You want him to be good. There's a chance he'll be good. There's a chance that he'll be bad and develop into being good in the future, which is sort of certainly what you hope with a guy that young. But if he plays, he will probably be bad. And so when you have a team with a rookie quarterback, you have to project that they'll be bad. And what I projected that Brissett, for the quarterback projection that's in the team projection, I used half Brissett and half May because I thought they'll probably switch around mid-year from one to the other. So, probably a little, if they use Brissett the whole year, it's probably a little bit better on offense. If they were to use May the whole year, they might be the worst offense in the league projected. You just can't expect a rookie to be good. Quarterback.
It's fair. There were a couple numbers, and that was one of them that caught my eye when I'm going through this almanac and just saying, look, what jumps out to me immediately? We don't want to comb through the whole thing here. One of which was, I think a lot of people could guess, Patriots faced 57% of their passing downs were against man coverage, which was number 1 in the league by a wide margin. And those are teams that, like Miami, then run by Vic Fangio, zone base, cover 6, cover 8, some quarters in there. The Jets play a ton of quarters. The Bills more of a zone defense. And they said, oh, no, screw this. Patriots are in town. Find a guy, stick to him, and that's it. They didn't really solve that. And it was interesting that in the FTN draft analysts that you have, Jalen Polk was probably, in addition to Demario Douglas, your best hope to break this trend because I would expect them to finish high in this ranking moving forward. Jalen Polk's comp was Tyler Boyd. When you're projecting rookie receivers, rookie quarterbacks stink. What can we expect, or what stood out to you as far as him and the receiving core?
I mean, rookie receivers tend to put up nice numbers. It's interesting in our projection system, teams with rookie receivers tend to drop a little bit, and then teams with second-year receivers tend to go up. Right? I know there's plenty of examples of teams with rookie receivers who are very successful, but all other things being equal, these guys, those offenses tend to struggle a little bit, even if the rookie receivers put up numbers. So that's another reason to believe that the offense won't necessarily be so good, because they're going to depend a good amount on rookie receivers, whether I don't know how much Javon Baker will play, but mostly, Jalen Polk. I mean, it's interesting. I think the Patriots receivers are a little underrated in that Bourne is really good back stats. Like 2 years ago, he was number 1 in the league in receiving DVOA, which is kind of crazy. And he was just as good in the ESPN Next Gen stats based on the player tracking.
Mm-hmm.
Bourne was really good in those too, and then he got into Belichick's doghouse and didn't play that much the last couple of years. But he's got a pretty good record, so the receivers might actually be a little bit underrated. But it's not like there's no clear number one. I mean, that's part of the problem is there's just no clear this guy is a number one receiver. And yeah, Jeff Radcliffe, who does the fantasy stuff, and he did the fantasy projections in the book, doesn't see Polk as a number one receiver type. He sees him as more of a Tyler Boyd type, which I think would be a little bit of a disappointment for the Patriots if that's how he develops.
So this is summertime. Obviously, we're recording Monday, July 15th. Common summertime radio topic that you could get to at this point would be, can you function without a number one wide receiver in the NFL? Or is it better just to have that guy that carries the gravity, pulls the defensive attention away, and allows others to set up? Because that was my argument for DeAndre Hopkins coming in. It's not that he alone is going to solve a bunch of problems, but it allows Kendrick Bourne to face number two corners in a way. Do you look at this and say they might benefit from that absence, or would just another better receiver allow everyone to fall into place?
I mean, if your receivers are as young and talented as Green Bay's, you don't need one of them to necessarily be your number one, but you don't want a bunch of number threes.
Yeah.
Right? You could have a bunch of number twos. You could have 4 guys who are number twos. That's kind of what Green Bay has, right? And then things spread around pretty well. But that's not really what the Patriots have. If Bourne is at his best, then he's like a 2. And if Polk develops into what you want him to be, he's like a 2. But I don't think Douglas is like a slot guy. And, Osborne is like a slot guy. He's not that high up, and you don't know what Javon Baker is going to be. You can't expect that a fourth round pick is going to turn into that great. So yeah, they're definitely when they go into next year's draft, I think people are going to be like, receiver, yes, take a guy so that he'll be your 1 and Polk will be your 2 and Douglas will be your 3, and you'll feel like you're really built for the future. That's, I think, how people are going to be talking 9 months from now.
If we ever go into a draft, Aaron, where the Patriots fans are not rightfully looking for a receiver, I don't know what I'm going to do. I feel like I carve out a whole week every April to get to know that group heading into the draft. One of the groups, though, that
hopefully Polk doesn't end up in the museum of bad Patriots second round receivers.
Yes, that place is full. No vacancy.
That place is full.
Yeah, for no time. There's also an adjacent wing in that museum of second round cornerbacks. And one of the stats when I go to defense, as far as things that just kind of jumped out at me, because Jonathan Jones, I've said, wrong side of 30 for corners, maybe better in the slot, particularly at 5'9", 0 interceptions last year, but he was top 5. I believe it was either by DVOA or success rate when targeted in this almanac, in a way that says, oh no, I'm fine. I'll be your number 2 corner.
He was number 5 in success rate.
There it is.
So the DVOA was not quite as impressive, meaning he was targeted a good amount, because DVOA is based on every snap in coverage rather than just when you're targeted. But his success rate was 5th in the league. So he was very good. When he was targeted, he was very good at preventing success on plays.
So what, and we don't have to talk about how predictive that is or whether it'll carry over. Again, he's in the back end of his career, but a very useful, valuable player in a way that captured it that I hadn't seen anything yet. What else in this almanac stood out defensively as you're putting this together and editing it?
I mean, it's interesting. Safeties are, I think, the hardest position in the league to judge, both from a scouting perspective, because you don't necessarily know what their responsibilities are on plays, and from a stats perspective, they're very hard to judge. So it's interesting that Duggar's stats against the pass don't come out that great. Against the run, they're really, really good. Jabril Peppers' stats against the pass come out really good. So that's sort of interesting given what you know about Peppers and Duggar. They both come out as really good against the run. I think safety is a really strong position for the Patriots. The other thing that I think people need to, if they don't understand, they need to understand is that the Patriots special teams, which were good year after year after year after year for like 25 years, have been awful the last 2 years, and they've got to get that solved.
Yes. And it's funny because Cam Accord became the proverbial punching bag, as deserved, as the special teams coordinator. But his debut season, #1 by DVOA in 2020. And then, like you said, just basically straight down the hill since then. A lot of it was field goal kicking. There was some huge drop off, losing Marcus Jones as a punt returner to Mario Douglas, who looks and profiles physically as a similar returner, but had far fewer yards below expectation, meaning he should have gotten 6, but he's dancing backwards and ends up with only 2 or 4. Breaking news. We've got a young, exciting underdog team in Boston that's making a run for the playoffs. No, it's not the Patriots. Well, not the Patriots yet. It's the Red Sox. And if you've been following this season, you know that the Red Sox have been a hotter ticket ever since the season started. I want you to get down to Fenway with GameTIme, an authorized ticket marketplace in Major League Baseball, where you will find killer last-minute deals, all in pricing, including those pesky fees, views from your seat, and the lowest price guaranteed. Guys, you've heard me talk about GameTIme before. And look, whether you are in New England, whether you're down in New York, whether you're out on the West Coast, you can browse through the GameTIme app to find any seat you want. Customize your spot, flash deals, zone deals. I've done this before, gone to a Yankee series. You could go to a makeup date, whatever it is to get you back into baseball with one of the best seasons we've had so far, especially for the Red Sox. And you can do this, again, with the lowest price guaranteed. I don't care where you get your tickets, but they should be now with the GameTIme app, which you can download right now. Create an account and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. All you need to do is create an account and redeem this code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. It could be MLB, WNBA, concerts, etc. Just go to GameTIme today. Find last-minute tickets in the lowest price guaranteed. Wrapping up with the defense of it, because there were a couple other stats, and I want to know if this is meaningful to you. Patriots led the league in sacks by inside linebackers and defensive backs, which I think speaks to the versatility of those safeties. Like, I don't want to get hit by Jabril Peppers or Kyle Duggar.
Yeah,
because
it also speaks to the
them.
fact that they needed to manufacture a pass rush with no Matthew Judon.
Exactly. They were excellent when they blitzed, which they did more of late in the season. Their 4-man rush suffered. They were also very good, talk about injuries, against #1 receivers, even after Christian Gonzalez was injured. But they were terrible on all of the other receivers, really 3 on down. What do you make of that as being stable or just kind of
that is the Bill Belichick special, baby.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's going to continue, but you remember the way Belichick used to always take his second best corner and his safety and double the #1 and then put his best corner on the 2. The Patriots always, in my little defense versus types of receivers, the Patriots are always better against #1s than #2s. Always, always, always. And I think that's a Belichick special, and I don't know what it will mean with the new defensive staff, whether that will change.
Yeah, because there were seasons where the opposite happened, right? Stephon Gilmore was shouting everyone from the second half of 2018 through his Defensive Player of the Year in 2019.
Yeah, but even with Gilmore, sometimes they would put Gilmore on the 2, and they would put Jonathan Jones and Devin McCourty doubled on whoever was the 1.
Yeah, it depended on certain game plan. I think the style of receiver, because there were some that Gilmore being a bigger, more physical corner, a great long speed, but the shiftiness wasn't necessarily there. Christian Gonzalez looks like has the complete package. And you're right, there might be a philosophical shift to Drake Maye being like, everyone knows we're going to play left-handed. They're happy. They've been practicing all week throwing left-handed. By the time we get to Sunday, they're good at it, and we don't have the same advantages because when you look at the first quarter stats, defensively and offensively, Patriots are among the worst first quarter teams in the league. Speaking of Drake Maye, I will say is something that does not tend to carry over from year to year. Those kind of quarter by quarter breakdowns are not predictive. You want them to be, you believe that they should be, they're not really, especially on defense. Okay, very good to know. And I think everyone is very glad to hear that. I mentioned Mayo. His game management is a big unknown to me. I think it would be hard to get more conservative than Belichick was at the end of the season. You and I have talked about this privately, publicly.
He changed so much over the course of his career. It's very strange.
Very strange. But what to me, that's a variable that it's hard to capture in any preview or almanac because we just don't know what he's going to do. Is there anything else that you have your eye on as this longtime follower of this team to say this could really shake things up and it's not highlighted in the almanac because we just can't do it yet? We have to wait and see about this.
Oh, I mean, I think the fact that Mayo is probably much more of a player's coach than Belichick is one of those intangible things that someone like me can't measure, but it absolutely is going to mean something.
Where would that manifest, do you think? Is it like being
just in player performance, but you won't know which players manifest as better or worse because they react better or worse to Mayo's style of coaching. We will have no idea, but I'm sure it will have an impact.
Yeah. My guess and sense is that they might be less risk averse on fourth down. Like, hey, if you're a player's coach and you want to get their buy-in and have them believe in you, Dan Campbell, very famously aggressive.
I'd like to see it.
Yes, and they were excellent, again, to all the things you can find in this, and you can go get the FTN Football Almanac and find all these stats and more. Patriots offensive line, largely poor, very good in short yardage. And again, they've returned most of those players, though Cole Strange is going to be out, sounds like, until November, December. So they're going to have a hole at guard and left tackle, more stuff that we have to wait and see. But I think they will be more aggressive in the players' coach, and development is a big part of that. But we got to get you out on this. Prediction time. 2 parts. I need a win-loss record. Are you abiding by your own almanac, 7-10, and then give us just an outline of the most likely Drake Maye season that you expect this year?
I do. I think I think their defense will be good enough for them to be 7-10, but I think that it will be clear by November or December that they're not really in the playoff race. And my guess is that Brissett starts the first 3 months of the season and Drake Maye takes over for the last month.
Are we excited with what we see from Drake Maye, or are we?
Rookie quarterback. I mean, I don't know what to expect from him, but when we were all having this debate before the draft, I was very much like, it's got to be a quarterback. It's got to be a quarterback. If there's 3 quarterbacks people think are at the top of the draft, and you have pick number 3, you don't take a wide receiver. You take a quarterback. That's what you need. The quarterback is the most important position on the field. So I'm glad they took one.
Yeah, the obvious thing in the draft. How about that? It really is a new era in New England. When they make the pick you expect, you've got to go Aaron Schatz, read him, find him at FTN Fantasy. ESPN Plus is an NFL analyst. And if you don't remember Chief Analytics Officer, just go with the godfather of football analytics and creator of DVOA. Thank you for spending some more time. Everyone should go buy the book. And I appreciate you enriching all of us here on the podcast.
FTNfantasy.com/almanac to buy the online edition of the book.
I've got it right here. See you soon, man.
All right.